Now then, Vinyl Monkey again. This week, Leonard Cohen, my top 10 Leonard Cohen albums. Leonard Cohen, I became aware of Leonard Cohen, it was 1973 and I can remember it really clearly. It was my last year at school. School was a bit anarchic. It was the Rosley year, the raising the school leaving age, so lots of people didn't want to be there. It was a merger of 5 different schools into a new comprehensive, so there was basically anarchy prevailed, and you turned up for some lessons if you felt like it, and for most of them we didn't bother. But one guy who I did enjoy his lessons was funnily enough, for a fundamentalist atheist like myself, the RE teacher, Tony Grigor. And if anyone who watches this is aware of whether Tony Grigor is still alive and still around, it would be great to know. But Tony Grigor was a new RE teacher, and one lesson he brought a record player in and stuck it in the corner of the room, and he produced Leonard Cohen's first album, Songs of Leonard Cohen, and proceeded to play it and talk about it, and songs like Suzanne and So Long Marianne. And me and a mate of mine, we were just blown away with this record. We'd never heard anything quite like it, and it really, you know, I was into sort of, I suppose, rock music in those days, turning from hard rock into prog rock, so Genesis and Yes and all those things. And this was just simple, different, beautiful stuff. And I remember we walked out with Grigor, the teacher, and my mate said to him, Sir, would you say it's the blues? Would you say Leonard Cohen the blues? And he looked at him and he said, no, it's not blues, son. It's fucking black. And I just remember that comment. And anyway, from then on, I just had to have Leonard Cohen albums, poetry books, his novels. He's written 2 novels, and I set about, straight down the other record shop in Hartlepool to see what they had, and I set about starting my Leonard Cohen collection, which I've got all his albums. Thankfully, there are not that many albums, so it hasn't taken quite so long to re-listen to them all. It's only about 15 or 16 albums. He didn't start till he was 33-year-old producing albums. He'd been writing novels and poetry before that. But I had to have everything, and I used to love his poetry books as a kid, and I just wanted to read one before we get into the top 10. It's only a brief one, but All There Is to Know About Adolf Eichmann. And I think Cohen had written this just after the famous Eichmann trial. So here we go. Eyes, medium. Hair, medium. Weight, medium. Height, medium. Distinguishing features, none. Number of fingers, 10. Number of toes, 10. Intelligence, medium. What did you expect? Talons? Oversized incisors? Green saliva? Madness? So yeah, I've got books full of stuff like that. Brilliant. But anyway, here we go then. So my top 10 Leonard Cohen albums, and over the last week when I've been re-listening to these, they've been up and down, jumping about in this top 10 like a blinking, like yo-yos. But so this would probably change if I did it again tomorrow, but this is the point in time. This is my top 10. And at number 10, and I wasn't sure whether to include this, but this is Thanks for the Dance, which came out in 2019, and which was actually 3 years after Leonard Cohen died at the age of about 81 in 1916. So I wasn't sure whether to include it, but it is a Leonard Cohen album. All the songs on here are by Leonard Cohen, but he'd done rough cuts of these songs just before he died, and I think these were the sort of outtakes that didn't make his last album that came out 3 weeks before his death, Would You Like It Darker? I think it's called something like that. And I think these are songs that didn't make that album, but they've been taken by his son Adam, who's brought in some brilliant musicians, brilliant guitarist, Javier Mas. I mean, listen to him on his own if you love listening to acoustic Spanish guitar. But he's brought in some brilliant musicians and producers and turned these songs into a really just quality album. So although Cohen might not have thought they were the strongest in terms of rejecting them for his last LP while he was alive, the strength of the poetry, the brilliant musicianship means it's in the top 10 for me. So that's Thanks for the Dance from 2019. Number 9 is 1979's Recent Songs. This came out a year after, I think, or a year or so after Death of a Ladies' Man, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which was panned by the critics. It had a Phil Spector production, and yeah, it was panned, and this was hailed as a return to form. And in fact, in an interview not long before he died, Leonard Cohen described this as his favourite album, and he pulled together a band which sort of created a sort of Middle Eastern sound, which suits his music really well, slightly jazz inflected. The first track, The Guest's, a lovely track, but these are all really strong, beautifully written and beautifully performed songs. So this is Recent Songs from 1979, number 9. My number 8, I've only got on CD, I'm afraid, but this is The Future from 1992, and this sounds absolutely brilliant. It's got a great band again. This is dystopian, it's scary. The first track, The Future itself, just listen to that one. And apparently, when after he died, they're looking through his notebooks and everything, and he had 60 pages of notes and crossings out and revisions just for that one song, The Future. But it's a superb album. I love the track Be For Real, which is really slow. It's beautifully slow. And the song Democracy, which is actually, I think if I interpret it rightly, is a sort of positive song about the USA, and that it's getting there and it's at the forefront of this experiment in the world called democracy. But yeah, that's The Future from 1992, my number 8. My number 7 is the one I've just mentioned. This is Death of a Ladies' Man. This was 1977. By this time, I already had everything that Cohen had produced, and I'd pre-ordered this one from the, I can't remember which record shop it would have been now, but anyway, I pre-ordered, was eagerly anticipating it, and when it came, I was just blown away by this. I mean, and I still love it, although I can see why some of the critics had a go at it. But this is Leonard Cohen in collaboration with Phil Spector. And this is really Phil Spector at his most over the top and ostentatious. So you've got the minimalist, sparse lyrics of Cohen and this over the top production. And I think it's a marriage made in heaven, personally. But not everybody liked it. But I think if you listen to any of the tracks on side 1, the opening track, True Love Leaves No Traces, or Paper Thin Hotel, or the last track on side 1, Memories, an absolute brilliant track. Yeah, superb. Apparently Spector held a gun to Cohen's head at one point during its production, but I think that was sort of par for the course for Spector in those days. It was off his nuts a lot of the time, but I think it's a great one. Death of a Ladies' Man 1977. The next one, my number, where are we, 10, 9, 8, 7, my number 6 is from 2004, and this is Dear Heather. And this is just a lovely album, really strongly written. Morning Glory, Go No More a Roving, Dear Heather itself. But I think one of the reasons why I've placed it so high is that it contains one of my, or possibly my favourite Leonard Cohen song. And the bizarre thing is, from all these LPs, every song, every word is written by Leonard Cohen. I say written, that's not doing it justice. I think every word is crafted and poured over, and famously he can take years and years to write a song or a poem, many years, many revisions. But my favourite song of all of these albums wasn't actually written by Leonard Cohen. It was written by another Canadian, a guy called Frank Scott, who was he won Canadian Poetry Awards. He set up Canada's first socialist party. But I think Cohen does such an absolutely beautiful interpretation of it, and I would urge you to give it a listen. It's called Villanelle for Our Time. I think a villanelle is a type of poem. I hope I've pronounced it right. Villanelle for Our Time. Anyway, here it goes. From bitter searching of the heart, quickened with passion and with pain, we rise to play a greater part. This is the faith from which we start. Men shall know Commonwealth again, from bitter searching of the heart. We loved the easy and the smart, but now with keener hand and brain, we rise to play a greater part. The lesser loyalties depart, and neither race nor creed remain, from bitter searching of the heart. Not steering by the venal chart that tricked the mass for private gain, we rise to play a greater part. Reshaping narrow law and art, whose symbols are the millions slain, from bitter searching of the heart, we rise to play a greater part. I think it's absolutely beautiful. If you want to feel optimistic about the human race, which I think in these times maybe, you know, it's easy to feel despairing and even feel comfort that humanity is probably on its last legs and will be extinct soon. But I think that poem does really provide some hope. Anyway, that's Dear Heather from 2004 is my number 6. My number 5 is the one that Tony Grigor brought into the RE class back in 1973, and this is Cohen's debut album. He was already 33 years old when he produced this, and this has got, I mean, you might wonder why I haven't got this as number 1 when you look at the songs on it and the poetry on it. Suzanne, So Long Marianne, That's No Way to Say Goodbye. I mean, classic after classic Leonard Cohen stuff. I think it's just not one of the ones I play most often. That's possibly the production. It's maybe got slightly overproduced, bit of orchestration here and there, and I think he was, production-wise, still finding his way. But absolutely brilliant album, his debut album, Songs of Leonard Cohen from 1967. My number 5. My number 4. Is New Skin for the Old Ceremony, which is from 1974, and this contains just brilliant songs. Is This What You Wanted? Open Side 1, Chelsea Hotel, I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel, you were famous, your heart was a legend, giving me head on the unmade bed while the limousine waits in the street. I just always remember those opening lines about a fling that Cohen had with Janis Joplin when they were staying in the Chelsea Hotel. But yeah, Lover, 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 brilliant track. But then one of my favourite tracks, which I often quote, "There is a war. There is a war between the rich and poor, a war between the black and white, etc., etc." But the line I love is, "There is a war between the ones who say there is a war and the ones who say that there isn't." And I think that's just such a really, really profound line, and one I always want to ram down the throats of those Daily Mail reading, suburban, who smug-eyes who, think that everything's okay. I'm alright, Jack. So yeah, that's a great track. There is a war, open side too. So New Skin for the Old Ceremony. That is my number 4, and that's from 1974. Now, top 3. As I say, this has changed about a bit over the weeks, but I've got at number 3, "I'm Your Man" from 1988. And this is superb. He's got a great band. They're just really, really strong songs. And I really just want to refer you to the first and the last song, really, if you want to give this album a try. The first song is "First We Take Manhattan," which, just a brilliant, brilliant opener, musically, lyrically, just really, really strong. And it always reminds me of that brilliant Geordie singer Mick Whittaker, who played many, many times in the clubs and pubs in the northeast, including in Hartlepool, who included this in his set, particularly during the early 90s. He often opened his set with his version of "First We Take Manhattan," and absolutely superb. And then the last track on here, which is one of my all-time favourite Leonard Cohen songs, "The Tower of Song," which is sort of a tribute to the songwriter, if you like, and he's, the brilliant line, I was born like this, I had no choice, I was born with the gift of a golden voice. And, a lot of Leonard Cohen fans, he's never been lauded for his voice particularly, although I do think he's a great singer actually, and he comes up with brilliant melodies as well, but great. And he talks about in this Tower of Song, 100 floors above him, Hank Williams is up there, but it's a brilliant song. Anyway, that's my number 3, "I'm Your Man" from 1988. My number 2, this is one that I think in other lists and critics maybe would have placed down a bit, but this is "Songs from a Room" from 1969. It was Cohen's second album, and I think when I read about it, that critics often say, well, wasn't as strong as his first album and not as strong as his third or fourth albums, but it does include the absolute classic "Bird on the Wire." But one of the things I do like about this is the production. It's a really Spartan production. It's Cohen on the acoustic guitar. It's Charlie Daniels, the sort of Nashville-based country musician, on bass, and then a bit of Jew's harp here and there. So it's a really, really Spartan production, which I think it just creates a brilliant feel right through the album. And then possibly the other reason is that I've got it up there at number 2, if I'm being absolutely brutally honest, is the cover, and the back photo is a picture of his girlfriend then, Marianne. They had a holiday place on a Greek island, I think it was Hydra or something like that, and it's just a photo of her at the desk working. But I've got to confess that the onanistic pleasure that photo helped me with, as I pondered over whether Marianne was actually, is that Marianne's knickers, or is she actually wearing no knickers and it's just where the sun hasn't got? And I've got to apologise to Marianne, who is now deceased, and Cohen is obviously deceased. But as a 15, 16-year-old lad with hormones raging, You know, you've got to use whatever comes to hand, as they say. And it did get me thinking actually whether I ought to do a top 10 album covers that helped with, you know, autoerotic stimulation and satisfaction. But I thought that might, you know, I'm conscious that this is the World Wide Web and that it goes everywhere, and it might make me out to be some sort of weird pervert or something. And of course, you know, that wouldn't be true. So, but anyway, that's my number 2, Songs from a Room from 1969. And then my number 1, Songs of Love and Hate from 1971. This one, as soon as I got hold of this, which was shortly after I got this version, which was actually second-hand at the time, in 1973-4. And this was on my turntable every day for, I don't know, months and months and months. Hardly a day went by without this spinning. And this is a dark, bleak, emotionally intensive. This is Cohen at what is, I suppose, a caricature of Cohen almost. This is what you expect him to be. Really, really intense and dark. And yeah, it's like it says on the tin, some of the songs are about love, some of them about hate, and both of them really, really pull those strings emotionally. I love the opening track, Avalanche, and also on here is one of his most beautifully written songs, I think, Famous Blue Raincoat. Just absolutely lovely. So on re-listening to them, I mean, I enjoy them all, and I don't know, as I say, it might be different, but I think over all the, how many years is it? It's nearly 50 years I've been listening to Leonard Cohen, 48 years or something. This is the one I've listened to most, and this is my number 1, Songs of Love and Hate from 1971. Okay, so please have a listen, argue with it in the comments, give me your own suggestions, suggest I go back and have another listen to something, and hope you might join me for my next week's top 10. Cheers.